In 1991, a woman named Pam Reynolds was clinically dead. Her brain showed no electrical activity. Her body was at 15 degrees Celsius. The doctors had drained all the blood from her head. And even so, she saw everything. But how is this possible? Well, she described with surgical precision every instrument used, every conversation between the doctors, every movement in the operating room. Is this really possible? Science says that consciousness is only brain chemistry, that when the brain dies, everything ends. But then, how do we explain Pam Reynolds' experience? How do we explain the thousands of similar cases documented by doctors around the world? For centuries, we've been told that science and spirituality are enemies, that you have to pick a side. Either you believe in reason, or you believe in the invisible. But what if this division is an illusion? What if the greatest scientists in history, Newton, Einstein, Jung, knew something they tried to hide from us? Because they did know. Newton spent more time studying alchemy and sacred texts than physics. Einstein said that science without religion is lame. Jung discovered that our mind is connected to something much greater than our individual brains. Today, quantum physics is revealing that the universe works in ways that seem magical, very difficult to explain. Particles that communicate instantly across infinite distances. Realities that only exist when someone is observing. Consciousness that appears to shape matter itself. I know this may sound strange or even hard to believe, but that is exactly why this topic is so important for our understanding of reality and personal evolution. In the next few minutes, I will show you scientific evidence that will challenge everything you believe about reality, consciousness, and existence. You will discover 1. Why neuroscientists are admitting that consciousness may exist outside the brain. 2. How quantum physics is validating ancient spiritual concepts. 3. What happens in the brain of monks during deep meditation that science cannot explain. 4. Why the idea that everything is connected may not just be cheap philosophy, but real physics. Get ready. Because after this video, you will never see science and spirituality the same way again. But before we explore where these two worlds meet, we need to understand exactly what each one represents. And here is the first surprise. Spirituality is not religion. But then, what is spirituality without religion? Spirituality is the human search for meaning that transcends the material. It's that feeling that there is something greater, a deep connection with the universe, a purpose that goes beyond merely existing and dying. As defined by the religion scientist Clarissa Franco, it is a personal search for meaning, self-realization, autonomy, authenticity, creativity, and freedom. It does not require churches, dogmas, or sacred books. It is something profoundly human and universal. And what is science? Science is a method. It's the most reliable way we have developed to understand reality through observation, experimentation, and replicable evidence. It builds knowledge through reason, rigorous testing, and constant questioning. The scientific method gave us antibiotics, rockets, the internet, and understanding of how the universe works from the Big Bang to the smallest subatomic particles. But here's the crucial point. While spirituality seeks the why, meaning purpose, science traditionally seeks the how, mechanisms, natural laws. And what if I told you that this division is starting to fall apart? That the deeper science investigates reality, the more it finds phenomena that seem spiritual? Yes, and that is what we are going to talk about now. So open your mind and reflect on what I call the enigma of consciousness. It's a little complex to explain, but I define it like this. You are conscious right now. You know you exist, that you are watching this video, that you have thoughts and feelings, but what is this consciousness? For traditional neuroscience, consciousness is just neurons firing electrical signals, billions of cells working together to create the illusion of a self. When the brain dies, consciousness simply disappears. But neuroscientist Antonio Damasio, one of the world's leading experts on the subject, admits there is still much to be unraveled about the true nature of consciousness. Even with all our advances in neuroimaging and neuroscience, we cannot explain why you have a subjective experience of existing. How does electrical activity transform into love, into fear, into the sensation of being you? Spiritual traditions have said something different for millennia, that consciousness is not produced by the brain, but received by it, like a radio picking up waves that already exist in the air. I know it sounds complex, and it really is, but stay with me, because this will make sense in a moment. But for now, let's go back to Pam Reynolds. During her surgery in 1991, the doctors had to perform something called hypothermic cardiac arrest. Her heart was stopped. Her brain had no measurable activity. She was, by all medical definitions, dead. But when she returned, she described impossible details. The specific bone saw used, which she compared to an electric toothbrush. Specific conversations among the doctors, even the music that played in the room. How can someone with no brain activity have such vivid and precise memories? Dr. Bruce Grayson, professor of psychiatry at the University of Virginia, dedicated 50 years to studying thousands of such cases. His conclusion? We cannot simply dismiss these experiences as hallucinations. The patterns are too consistent, the details too verifiable. Thousands of people around the world report the same. A sensation of floating outside the body, a tunnel of light, encounters with deceased loved ones, life review, and a sense of absolute love and connection. But what do you think about that? Is it pure coincidence, oxygen in the brain, or evidence that consciousness can exist independently of the brain? For 2,500 years, Buddhist monks have said that meditation transforms the mind. Science ridiculed this as superstition, until we started scanning the brains of meditators. Neuroscientist Richard Davidson put Tibetan monks in MRI machines. What he discovered shocked the scientific community. Meditation not only relaxes, it literally rebuilds the brain. Experienced meditators show increased gray matter in the hippocampus, memory and learning. Reduction in the amygdala, center of fear and anxiety. Increased thickness of the prefrontal cortex, decision-making. Changes in brain waves that cannot be artificially replicated. Today, meditation is prescribed by doctors for depression, anxiety, chronic pain, and even hypertension. An ancient spiritual practice fully validated by modern science. Had you ever heard about this? Now folks, let's enter truly unsettling territory. Quantum physics, the study of the smallest particles in the universe, has revealed something absolutely bizarre. Reality does not work as we thought. To better understand, let's talk about three fundamental phenomena. First, quantum entanglement. Two particles can be connected instantly, no matter the distance. Change one, the other changes immediately. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance and hated the idea. But experiments proved he was wrong. The phenomenon is real. Second, superposition. A particle can be in two places at once until you look at it. The simple act of observing collapses infinite possibilities into a single reality. Third, the role of the observer. Experiments show that consciousness seems to influence matter at the quantum level. The famous double-slit experiment demonstrates that particles decide how to behave based on whether or not they are being observed. Now, an important warning. Many spiritual gurus use quantum physics completely incorrectly to sell courses and unsupported ideas. Brazilian physicist Marcelo Gleiser is blunt. We cannot just take quantum concepts and apply them to the macroscopic world without scientific rigor. But what is undeniable is that, at the fundamental level, the universe works in ways that seem to validate ancient spiritual ideas. Everything is connected. Observation changes reality, and separation may only be an illusion. Now you might be thinking, okay, quantum particles are connected, but that's just in the microscopic world, right? In the real world, I am a separate individual. Are you sure? Because when we step out of the quantum realm and look at biology, ecology, larger-scale physics, we discover something surprising. No man is an island. That phrase from the poet John Donne is ceasing to be just poetry and becoming scientific fact. In systems biology, we've discovered that organisms are not isolated machines, but complex networks of interactions. Your body contains more bacterial cells than human cells. You are literally an ecosystem. In ecology, we understand that each species is connected in complex webs. Remove wolves from Yellowstone and the shape of rivers changes. Everything is connected. And in physics, unified field theory seeks to prove that all fundamental forces, gravity, electromagnetism, nuclear forces, are manifestations of a single underlying force. Now, pause and think about this for a moment. Consciousness that transcends the brain, meditation that rebuilds neurons, particles instantly connected across the universe. All of this is real science, not philosophy. But before you think that science and spirituality are completely compatible, we need to talk about where they collide. It's not all roses in this relationship. There are real and important conflicts between science and spirituality that we cannot ignore. Science requires that experiments be replicable. If you do an experiment in Tokyo and I do the same in São Paulo, we should get the same results. But how do you replicate a mystical experience? How do you measure spiritual enlightenment? How do you put faith in a test tube? Physicist Richard Feynman was direct. The first rule is not to fool yourself, and you are the easiest person to fool. Subjective experiences, no matter how real to those who experience them, cannot be the only evidence. This does not mean that subjective experiences are not real or important. Love is subjective, but it is real. Pain is subjective, but it is real. But we need to be careful when turning personal experience into universal truth. And we also have another issue, which is actually a serious problem. People without scientific training take terms like quantum energy, vibrational frequency, or unified field, and use them to sell ineffective alternative therapies and even financial pyramids. Marcelo Gleiser, a renowned Brazilian physicist, is clear. We cannot allow scientific concepts to be twisted to validate beliefs without factual basis. Quantum physics works at the subatomic level. It doesn't explain the law of attraction. It doesn't validate healing crystals. It doesn't justify that your thoughts create your reality in a literal sense. This is misappropriation and harms both science and genuine spirituality. Science is based on healthy skepticism. Every idea must be tested, questioned, verified. As sociologist Robert Merton said, all claims must be subject to the rigorous scrutiny of the scientific community. But there is a difference between skepticism and cynicism. Skepticism says, "Show me the evidence and I'll consider it." Cynicism says that's impossible and not even worth investigating. Many scientists, unfortunately, fall into cynicism when it comes to spiritual phenomena. They reject near-death experiences without investigation. They dismiss meditation as a placebo until the evidence became impossible to ignore. They ridicule anything that doesn't fit the materialist paradigm. This cynicism delays scientific progress. But then, what is the path forward? Recognizing these divergences does not mean that science and spirituality are incompatible. It means we need scientific rigor in investigating spiritual phenomena, as well as intellectual honesty in admitting the limits of the scientific method, respect for subjective experiences without turning them into dogma, and also openness to possibilities without abandoning critical thinking. Because at the frontier of knowledge, fascinating things are happening. And we are at a unique moment in history. Science is developing tools to investigate phenomena that were once only the domain of the spiritual. Bruce Grayson and other serious researchers are proposing something radical. What if the brain doesn't produce consciousness, but filters it? Think of the brain as a radio receiver, not the composer of the music. This idea would explain near-death experiences, mediumistic phenomena reported throughout history, and why brain damage does not necessarily destroy a person's essence. Studies at universities such as Virginia, Southampton, and Liège are seriously investigating this, with rigorous protocols and publications in respected scientific journals. We still don't have definitive proof, but the questions are getting more interesting. And now get ready, because we are going to enter one of the most disturbing concepts in modern physics, the holographic universe theory. Is reality an illusion? The holographic universe theory proposes something that seems straight out of a science fiction movie. All the information in our three-dimensional universe may be encoded in a two-dimensional surface, like a giant hologram. This is not pseudoscience. Renowned physicists like Leonard Susskind of Stanford have dedicated their careers to this theory, and the implications are profound. It means that the separation you feel between yourself and the rest of the universe may be illusory, that everything is fundamentally interconnected in ways our common perception cannot grasp. You know that old spiritual idea that everything is one? That the separation between you and the rest of the universe is only an illusion of our senses? Modern physics is saying, it may be true. Coincidence or convergence? Now you may be thinking, okay, the universe may be a hologram. Particles are entangled, but this is all very abstract, very distant. What does this have to do with me, with my real life? And here's the fascinating twist. Because if the entire universe is interconnected, if consciousness is not just brain chemistry, if separation is illusory, then who you think you are may be much more than you imagine. And that is exactly what science is starting to prove when it looks within, to self-knowledge. Neuroscience and millennia-old contemplative practices are coming together in unprecedented ways. And what they are discovering will completely change how you understand yourself. Self-knowledge is not just that stuff about knowing your feelings or doing therapy. It's something much deeper and measurable. Science is proving that when you deeply know yourself, through meditation, self-reflection, contemplative practices, you are literally reprogramming neural circuits, changing the physical structure of the brain, altering gene expression via epigenetics, switching genes on and off without changing the DNA, transforming how your body responds to stress at the cellular level, affecting inflammation, immune system, even aging. This is not a metaphor, it is measurable biology. Philosopher John Searle is proposing something revolutionary. Consciousness is an emergent property of the brain, but has subjective characteristics that cannot be fully reduced to physical processes. In other words, you are material and spiritual simultaneously, not one or the other. Both. We are discovering that the human being is not just body or just soul. It is a complex and integrated synthesis of both. And the more we bring these perspectives together, the more complete our understanding becomes. Medicine is already applying this. Integrative medicine, which combines conventional medical treatments with contemplative practices like meditation, yoga, and mindfulness, is showing superior results in treating cancer, heart disease, depression, and anxiety. Hospitals like Johns Hopkins, Harvard, and Stanford do not do this for mysticism. They do it because it works. Because the data is undeniable. The future is not science or spirituality. It is science and spirituality. So we have reached the end of this journey. And if you are waiting for me to give you a definitive answer about who is right, science or spirituality, I will disappoint you. Because the question is wrong. Albert Einstein, who revolutionized our understanding of the universe, said something profound. Science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind. He was not saying that science needs religious dogma, or that religion should reject evidence. He was saying that both perspectives, when integrated, give us a more complete view of reality. Science shows us how the universe works. Spirituality invites us to ask why it exists and what our place is in it. Science gives us antibiotics and space travel. Spirituality gives us meaning and purpose. Science maps the neural circuits of love. Spirituality teaches us to love. We need both. And increasingly, we are seeing convergence. Hospitals include chaplaincy and contemplative practices in treatment. Universities create consciousness studies departments. Physicists collaborate with meditators. Psychologists study mystical experiences without judgment. We do not need to choose. We can integrate. But here's the question I leave for you. Are you willing to keep your mind open enough to question your deepest beliefs, both materialist and spiritual? Can you handle the tension of not having all the answers, of living in the mystery, without falling into dogmatism on either side? Because perhaps the greatest wisdom is to admit, the universe is stranger, deeper, and more wonderful than our current science or spiritual traditions can fully capture. And it's okay not to know everything. In fact, that is where the real quest begins. Leave your comments. Do you believe that consciousness can exist beyond the brain? Which of these intersections surprised you the most? Do you consider yourself more skeptical or more open to spiritual possibilities? Let's create a respectful and intelligent discussion in the comments, because these are the kinds of conversations that really matter. If this video expanded your perspective, leave your like. If you want to see more content that honestly unites science, philosophy, and spirituality, subscribe to the channel. And remember, the search for truth never ends. It just gets more interesting. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.